Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to another player profile. Now, the other day I was just sifting through a few defenders, just scrolling my way down the list. Came across this man and I was surprised I hadn't seen him spoken about in a few forums that I've been looking at, or not in too many mock teams already. I'm sure he's been spoken about, but Brandon Ellis, a very interesting fella to look at, I think. And look, I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. I'll get stuck in a few of mine, of course, at first, but we can get him as a defender now. Certainly early in his career, it looked like if that ever became the case again, he'd be a fantastic pickup as he was thriving as a midfielder. But he has obviously got that defender status because he has played quite a bit off the halfback flank over the last couple of years, particularly last year. But look, he is priced at $502,000 after averaging 91.4 last year in that fantastic year for the Tigers. So very interesting to just take a look at him. He's in his prime, 25 years of age just about by the time the season starts. 135 games in a Tiger team that isn't blessed with a stack of gun midfielders. I must say I thought Ellis, by this point in his career, wouldn't be rolling off a half-back flank, more so going through the midfield, because you think Martin, you think Cochin, and then it's quite an even spread, which I guess is why they did win the premiership with such an even side and a fantastic system. But interesting to note that as a junior in the under-18s, he did play as a defender. I'm not sure about you guys, but I was just under the impression he was another talented midfielder picked up at number 15 in the 2011 draft, sort of plying his trade as a youngster and would eventually turn into a midfielder. But he was a defender by trade, so that begs the question that maybe he will stay there. Because I think when we look at his position and we look at his price and we look at him as a SuperCoach prospect, I think we do need to see slightly more midfield minutes. Whether he'll get that, I'm not too sure. So that's something that pre-season will uncover, but I just wanted to talk about him early on. I'm sure we'll touch on him again, but I thought it was good to talk about him and put him on the radar early on so we can monitor him, because there's definitely a spot in that midfield for him. He's not an in and under play. Now that's going to be Cochin, that's going to be your Lamberts, your Prestias, all those types are going to probably dish that hard ball out. But he's a damaging player on the outside, and he has been quite good off the half-back flank. Now, 2015 was a clear year that we're all going to look at. He averaged 100.3 rather, and was extremely good, playing a fair bit of midfield time. Now, I must say I don't watch Richmond week in, week out, but from my recollection, he was rolling off a wing and through the midfield most weeks and most times throughout a game, more often than not. Taking a look at a few of his stats, if we face up 2015 versus 2017, that sort of backs it up. His disposals dropped 3, 25.8 in 15, down to 22.3 last year. Tackles, often a quality of a bloke who's in the contest and the stoppage, 3.4 down to 2 this year. Rebound 50s went up 2.2 to 3.2 in 2017. Shows he's getting a little bit more pill from the back line. And his clearance numbers, as I said, not a huge clearance guy, more outside, but 2.1 in 2015 down to 1.1 last year. So what do we take out of that? Those numbers aren't drastic changes. They're slight changes from game to game, but it does tell me that 2015 saw him play as more as a midfielder who did play on the back line at times, and 2017 those stats show me a rebounding defender who did float up through the midfield rotation at times. The question for us will be taking a look at how much midfield time he's going to get. I'm not sure we could bank on him right now in that role that he played last year. Of course, 91.4 was off the back of 85.4 in 2016. Prior to that, 2014 and 2015 were 96.9 and that 100.3. So clearly his trend was on the up. 100.3, we thought, yep, this top pick, talented player, he's going to be a sort of guy who averages 3 figures through the midfield for some time. Slight change in role, him and Basher Hooley off the back line being really good, but maybe not so good for his scoring. But if we can see a slight change in that, any evidence that he's in that midfield more often than not, more of a midfield cog, then I'm going to be extremely tempted, because he's a damaging player, a very damaging player at his best, and the sort of guy who I could see not getting a stack of attention. The fact that Martin and Cochin are going to cop a lot more attention, even an Edwards or a Prestia, depending who's out in the park. But certainly Ellis in that 2015 season, a few games that I did see and really noticed him in those games, he was just racking up an easy 30. He may not have been best on ground, but easily worked his way to 90 to 110 points regularly, as the average suggests. So I think that's certainly something that we've got to take a look at, because if we could see more midfield time from him, it's an extremely good selection. But if not, then all of a sudden he's just another rebounding defender. You know, do we go a Hibberd, a Zachy Williams? Do you go your Hurley type? Of course, Yo's in a lot of sides. You know, all those guys that we talk about. And the backline's one I think he can take slight more risk, because you do see a bit more of a fluctuation year on year as to who is the best defender. You've only got to look at Heath Shaw. You know, it can change quick. A defender's role isn't naturally friendly to point scoring. So a slight change in that role, you become slightly more of a lockdown player. All of a sudden you drop off big time, where your midfielders and forwards, well, if they slightly change a role, generally they're either playing a little more forward, a little more midfield. Still definitely a place you can score good points if you're in form and having a good season, where the back line, well, if you're playing a negative sort of role, even an offensive player like Ellis, maybe at times played a little more negatively, certainly through the finals. I'd like to hear a few Tiger fans who watched the Tigers very closely through that final series. What was he playing sort of through the finals? Was it the same role? Did he play elsewhere? Did he just have a poor sort of a final series? Because what was his scores? I don't know his scores exactly, but touches he had 9, 12 and 14. So that'd be interesting, I must say. I can't recall and didn't see every one of the finals due to a few work commitments. But yeah, I certainly think he's one that's right on our radar and potentially a point of difference, because I think a lot of people will have Yo, a lot will have Hibberd, you know, those sort of types. There'll be a lot of those popular players in the back line. A lot of people are talking about is sort of 3, 4, 5 premiums that we can rely on, pick 3 of those and then go a Birchall or something like that and round it out with rookies. Or maybe Ellis can shake that up a little bit. Maybe he can be a 4th premium, maybe a 3rd. Who knows? But one thing we do know is he's capable, and he's the sort of guy that I feel the Richmond coaching staff will look at and see a little bit more potential than just a bloke playing off a halfback flank. Clearly it's worked, but we know that AFL footy is an ever-changing game, and you've got to be forward of the ball. You can't be sitting back thinking that last year's game plan's going to do the same thing. So I think they'll be looking to change some things up. Whether that impacts Ellis's role, we'll have to wait and see, but I thought it was definitely worth putting him on the map at this point in time. So let me know your thoughts. I'd be very interested, as I said. Will you be going with him? Will you even be thinking about him? Is he a watch and see for you, as he is for me? I'd like to hear. So subscribe to the channel as always. Give it a like. Give it a comment. And yeah, if I don't speak to you before the new year, enjoy your New Year's Eve, and I'll chat to you soon. Cheers.